friends, Mike Shreeve here, founder and head troublemaker of the No Pants Project. You're listening to episode 22 of the No Pants Show. We're going to be talking about the Pre-eminence Pricing Strategy. This is not just about increasing your fees, being able to command more for what it is that you do. This is also, and perhaps more importantly, about reducing the friction, in reducing the strain and struggle in getting those people to actually pay your fees. So it's one thing to just go out into the market and say, this is how much I am now. This is how much it costs to work with me. Deal with it. That's one thing. There's something else entirely when someone pays that price without kicking and screaming, but also has a full understanding of why they are paying that price, and in fact uses that price to justify buying from you. So for example, it's this idea of a luxury good. Somebody pays the price and they look at the price and they say, this is a luxury good because of the price, and I'm justified in paying that price. So literally the price itself sells you on why the price is so high. The easy way, if we were to boil the preeminence pricing strategy down into a single line, the easiest way to make people pay the price you desire is for you to be the obvious choice. Not to be a choice, but to be the obvious choice. There was a study done, I believe it was between 5 and 10 years ago. I didn't lock down the exact date before I did this episode. There was a study done that showed in B2B sales, so in business to business, what we do as freelancers, we are a business and we're typically selling to other businesses. 20% of all sales are made based on price, with lowest price being the determining factor in what closes the deal. I think that would surprise many people to learn that it's only 20%. Most freelancers feel like it's 100%. But the reality of the market is that only 20% of all sales are decided upon with price being the main factor. The other 80% is a variety of different factors which lead to the sale. Oftentimes it's a complex number of different factors that finally allow the decision to be made to hire a certain vendor. But price is not the predominant reason someone buys something. So if you as a freelancer are focusing even just your internal dialogue and your own fears and your own business, and you're always talking about price, you're going to fall into that 20%. It not only means you're going to be working in an environment which is difficult to survive in, because the ultimate goal of a price-based decision is what's the least I can pay. You're also going to be only exposing yourself to 20% of the market, because the other 80% of the market are looking for other indicators and factors to make a decision, and you haven't even put any thought into what those other 80% of those indicators may be. The preeminence pricing strategy is about focusing on that 80%. And the natural byproduct of focusing on that 80% is then conversations about your service in which price may not even be one of the determining factors. So it's a completely different conversation. That's ultimately what you have to have if you're looking for a resistance-free sales process. at least when it comes to getting out of the conversations where you're struggling to haggle over price. Okay? There are 3 core elements to the preeminence pricing strategy. The first is that you need to speak to people who are in a position where something other than price matters to them. Specifically, you need to speak about pain. When someone is in pain, money is not the primary objective or the primary determining factor or the primary reason they buy something. They buy something to relieve themselves of the pain. So the first step in changing the conversation that you have in selling your wares and your services and your etc. is to look at what is the pain that I can solve. You'll see look, I don't have a lot to tell you. Let's be honest. I don't have a PhD in this stuff. There's a reason I keep saying the same things over and over and over again. It's because most of you aren't doing them. The good news is you don't need a PhD. You just need to do the very simple things like retooling and re-gearing what you offer to address pain instead of something else. Because when you address something else, you increase your likelihood of the conversation being about price, because it's a nice to have, not a must have. When you're in pain, it's a must have to be relieved of that pain. When you're not in pain and you're just kind of shopping around for whatever, those are nice to haves. The dynamics of the purchase process change. Now, when we're talking about pain, what I'm suggesting is that you become very specific about the pain that you're talking about. Be brutally specific, because it's the difference between having heart problems, severe heart problems, and having the choice between, do I go to the general practitioner or do I go to the heart surgeon? Or at least the cardiologist. Specialization changes the nature of the conversation. So specializing in being very good at fixing and solving a certain specific type of pain for a certain specific type of individual, a pediatric cardiologist is very different than a geriatric cardiologist. They talk about very different things. They've studied and, come up with solutions to very different problems. Are there commonalities throughout the field of cardiology between pediatrics and geriatrics? Yes, of course, but the differences are what's important. So, first step to the preeminence pricing strategy to stop making price the main topic of conversation is to pick a certain pain and be clear in your own mind and in how you present yourself that you solve that very specific pain for that very specific type of person. I help creative freelancers who are not currently earning 6 figures build a 6-figure business. That's what the entire No Pants project, there's different, so depending on where you are, so if you're just getting started or you're really struggling to have consistent, income, and you really want to build, a full-time freelance business and maybe make between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, that puts you in the No Pants Project coaching program, right? That's our core product there. Then when you're ready to get to the 6-figure level, then we've got some other things. We've got more in-depth mentoring and one-on-one and mastermind and all these different things. That's the whole point of this particular business. In my freelancing business, I serve a very specific type of person. They're typically a personal development, self-improvement style, either authors or public speakers. Most often they're the same. We call them experts. So experts in the public, in the public service, I wish. Experts in the personal development space, and I help them to achieve a very specific income that allows them, the pain that I solve is that allows them to get off of the speaking circuit, because the speaking circuit is brutal. I once worked with a speaker who was the most booked speaker of that particular type in the world, and this particular person was doing more than 200 speeches a year. My dear friends, they do not do their speeches in the hometown. Some of them are in England, some of them are in the United States. They'd go to Australia, they'd go all over the world. That is a very brutal life if you have a family. So the pain that I solve, though I use the skill set of copywriting and digital marketing and creativity and consulting and problem solving, though I use all these different skills, the problem that I solve very specifically are personal development people who are on the speaking circuit and they want to replace that income, because you get paid very well to be a public speaker, $10, $15, $20, $30, $45,000 a speech, depending on how big you are, to replace that income with digital income, which is to say, turning it into products, turning it into online things to purchase, and building out their income that way. So the pain that I'm solving is get off the road, come home, impact the same amount of people. We'll do it over a course of a year with a very specific dollar amount as the goal for what we're going to achieve together. That's why I almost never have price resistance. And I'm talking about $8,000, $10,000, $12,500, $16,000 per month contracts. It's because the conversation isn't about money, it's about this pain that they have. How do we solve it? What do we need to do to solve it? What do we need to do to come to a solution that you'd be happy with? That's the preeminence pricing strategy. Number 2, there's a really great story that I've heard from several different sources. It goes like this. There once was a man who went to Hawaii. There was a local Hawaiian, and he was fishing, catching dinner. And this man who was watching the local pull out 12 fishing poles asked the man, "Why do you have 12 fishing poles? And what are you doing? You're just trying to catch dinner. What, you need like 1 or 2 fish. Why do you have 12 different fishing poles?" The man said, "Well, you know what? I love eating fish, but I really don't like catching it." I think most of us as freelancers can agree we love having clients, we don't like getting them. We like to eat our dinner, but making it isn't really that fun, right? For a lot of freelancers. So what this local had devised as a strategy of, instead of sitting there with one fishing pole, casting, recasting, casting, recasting, casting, recasting, casting, recasting, and having his entire dinner, the entire possibility, the probability of catching a fish contingent upon this one fishing pole hitting at the right spot at the right time and everything being perfect, instead of sitting there and doing a bunch of work trying to make that process work, he set up 12 fishing poles and was able to just sit back, and because the odds were in his favor, every single night he caught more than he needed. Now, the problem with most ways that freelancers get clients is it's like they go out to the marketplace with a single fishing pole and they're just tossing it. They'll put a proposal here, a proposal there. They'll go to this particular website, try to find a job there. Instead, the successful freelancer, the one who has a freelancing business rather than just a job where they have to come up with their own paycheck every couple weeks, they use the same philosophy of multiple fishing poles, and there's a couple of ways that you can do that. The first way is to follow something like Gary Vaynerchuk, which is to say, make 50 pieces of content every single day and be on every single platform and be everywhere and use retargeting ads, and nobody can ever escape you once you click on. That's one way to do it. And it is an effective way. Like, as much trouble and grief as I give the whole ideology behind that whole movement of being everywhere all the time, and grinding 16, 18 hours a day, there's a reason that people do it, and it's because it works. But there's another way to accomplish that same exact thing more efficiently for the needs of a freelancer, right? Now, if you're a big multi-million-dollar company and you have staff and you can make 50,000 pieces of content every day, my recommendation is do it. Like, there's no reason not to. But if you're just a solo entrepreneur, you're just one person whose business requires that you not only get clients but then serve those clients, right? So you need to have time in the day to not be spending all day doing marketing. Then what you can do is replace being everywhere to everyone on every social channel, on every medium that's possible, and take that same concept of 12 fishing poles versus one and condense it down to the concept of frequency, which is to say a single channel, maybe two channels. So for example, the No Pants Project is now a 2-channel company. We have email and podcasting. That's our 2 channels. And we show up every single day. Now, the reason we show up every single day is because of the 12 fishing pole idea. This podcast that I'm creating right now could be horrible. You could not like it. It could fall flat. It could not go viral. There's a lot of things that could go wrong with this particular podcast. Or the email, I sent my email list this morning. Lots of, people might not like it. They may whatever. But tomorrow I get to try it again. And I get to try it again the day after, and the day after, and the day after, and the day after. And what ends up happening is a couple of things. One, because I continue to show up, and because I continue to show up on a regular basis, and, except for a few breaks, sometimes I'll take a week off, or sometimes I'll take breaks here and there, I am a consistent force. I am top of mind to those who are in those channels. So I don't need to be on every channel. I just need to show up a lot on my channels. So in email and in podcast. And by consistently showing up, it creates a level of trust that is hard to do in one-off marketing campaigns. In the past 3 days, we have done about, 4 plus 4 plus 3.5, 8, $11,500 in sales since Monday, and this is being recorded Tuesday night. $11,000 in sales for just one of our products. Nearly all of that money came from people who had consistently seen me show up over a long period of time. And the price resistance for this particular product, which was expensive, $3,800, $3,500, was 0. Why? Because I was the obvious choice. I was the obvious choice because over time I had put little drips of value into their bucket, because I continued to resonate the same message generally over time, which is build a business around your life instead of trying to build your life around a business. Make sure that you do things with integrity. Make sure you do things with honesty. Don't try to build a 57. And the things I keep repeating, like I said, over and over and over again. And because of that consistency, I became the obvious choice for them. So price was not the conversation that we were having. Now you compare that to a non-frequent or a low-frequency marketing event, which is maybe a big push, a big launch, there's a reason Black Friday sales are 50, 60, 70% off, because they are not using Pre-eminence Pricing Strategy. They don't have frequency at their disposal. They have one shot. It's only going to work this one Friday. And so we need to compete on whatever we can compete on. Let's compete on price. That's a Black Friday sale. I've run many, many Black Friday sales over the past 10 years for many, many different clients. Now, so as you do frequency, that's going to happen. So you're going to build trust. People will see you show up consistently over time, etc., etc. But there's something else that happens. And it's literally the pieces of content that you create, whether it's an email, whether it's a podcast like this, whether you want to try and blog every day like Seth Godin does, whether you want to do videos every day like somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk does. A lot of people are starting to do now the daily video. Those pieces of content are now your fishing poles in and of themselves, meaning there are episodes of this podcast that are getting shared, with some people are sharing it over here, and it's like having little salespeople that never sleep, that never rest, that never take vacations, out there on the interwebs, basically kind of just crawling around looking for people. And the way that they do that is because they've just been cast out into the ocean of the interwebs. Share it on your Facebook, share it on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter what you do with the asset itself. And you don't have to take your daily email and even put it on the internet. Some people will share your emails. Also, you can take emails you know that work and use them again and again and again and again. Like, use it every 6 months. People don't remember stuff like that. Like, if you have a good email, I'm not saying to like lie and, if your email starts off with yesterday you could literally resend the email and say, I sent this 6 months ago on December 15th and it, I'm sending it again today because it's really, really important. Anyways, here it is. And then you send the email. So it's just another asset in your toolbox that you can reuse. Also, you can take the content of the email that you created and maybe make a video out of it, extrapolate, turn it into a blog post. Obviously an email isn't a blog post, so you have to make it longer. But the idea is that we are approaching this process not with this thing has to work or I'm doomed. If it doesn't work today, the whole company's over. That's not a good place to be. A good place to be is we show up, we do our daily habits, and the daily habits get us to where we want to go, and no one thing will make or break the company. Our little company called My Freelancing Business. Okay? This is the same approach I take in building my fiction self-published company as well. I know that it's very unlikely that someone like me is going to publish an overnight bestseller sensation of, get the movie made and the et cetera and the et cetera. I will probably never be on the red carpet. And yet I have consistently, year after year, since 2012, generated 6 figures a year in self-published fiction revenue because I don't try to do one-offs. I publish frequently. I do the best work I possibly can, and then I publish it. And I'm not the only one. Most of the people who are successful, Mark Dawson, Chris Fox, Nick Stevenson, etc., the majority of successful self-publishers, frequency is a core element of their success. Almost all art has, except for the outliers, a core component of individuals who make their living because they can produce. We talked about it the other day in the podcast. Picasso made 50,000 different pieces of art. That's a frequency career. And it removes chance. You can remove risk. And the Pre-eminence Pricing Strategy allows you to remove the risk of people saying, I don't like your price, because you have all these hooks in the water and you're going to keep catching fish even if ones slip away. So now you have the power to have comfort about what it is that you're going to say, how you're going to say it, who you're going to say it to, and et cetera, and et cetera. Okay, next, and the third element of how do you become the obvious choice. Oh, by the way, one of the things of frequency, if you want to become the obvious choice, just be on people, the top of mind. A lot of the stuff we buy because it's convenient, because it's there, because it's the thing we saw last, because it's... Remember, 80% of all B2B purchases are made with factors other than price. One of those factors is just convenience. Oh, I know a guy. Because I saw his, I get his email every single day. I can't tell you how many times this has happened. Okay, I get a client because one of the people in the staff meeting that week is on my email list. Someone in the staff meeting says, gosh, we really need a copywriter. Or gosh, is there some way that we could get off of this thing that we're doing? Or gosh, and what happens? Oh my gosh, I know this guy. I get his emails every single day. I'm in his inbox reminding him every single day that I'm here. Keep adding value. Keep gaining the worthiness or the permission to be in that inbox. The permission to be on social media. The permission to have them subscribe to my podcast and get a podcast every single day. So that's how you become the obvious choice. Third thing, if you want to be the obvious choice, don't focus on how little you can offer. Focus on how much you can offer, because results, getting someone a result, means price is no longer the topic of conversation. If price becomes the main topic, it's likely because the client is trying to figure out whether they can trust you or not. Specifically, they're trying to figure out if they're going to be happy with spending that money or not. When you become very good at getting results, what will happen is the people who start to have conversations with you, if you get really good at getting results and then really good at sharing those results, right? So if you follow the podcast episode where I talk about 21 different ways to use free content to attract clients, one of them was share your success stories. Now people are coming to you framed as knowing and believing and having confidence that you're someone who gets results. So that fear of, if I spend money on this person, am I going to get what I need? It vanishes before the conversation even happens. This is the power of preeminence. The topic shifts from that 20% of why people make B2B choices to the 80%. Now, you may say, okay, Mike, this is all gravy and I love it and it's really cool and it's very interesting. But what about if I'm doing cold outreach? Because a lot of this sounds like stuff you can only do if you're using attraction methods, like email list building or daily content creation or etc. All of this applies even in cold outreach. Pick one pain, one group of people that you're going to go solve. Reach out only to them. Say, I am the person who helps these specific types of people with this specific type of problem. Number 2, the Hawaiian fisherman. How do you put 12 fishing lines out there in cold outreach? Well, by definition, cold outreach is outcome independent, driven casting of the pole. In other words, you go send as many cold outreaches as you can via email, via LinkedIn, etc. You put as many hooks in the water as possible. And then lastly, be better at delivering results. Be really good at delivering results. The confidence will come through on the phone call. And if you have stories to share of results you've gotten, you can share them on the call. So the preeminence pricing strategy is very simple, very powerful. You can have conversations with prospective clients where price isn't even an issue. It's not even why they're making the decision. There are a few things you have to do in order for that to happen. I can promise you they are worth every single penny. The conversations we've had, even in the No Pants Project, have changed just because we've added podcasting. The people we have conversations with who have been on my email list for weeks, months, are very different than the conversations we have from people coming in through Facebook ads. Two very different conversations. And that's because of the preeminence pricing strategy. Okay, my dear friends, that is it from me. Episode 22 of the No Pants Show. We talked about the preeminence pricing strategy. If you'd like help in developing and implementing this strategy into your own creative freelance business, please visit thenopants.project.com. You can find out more information about this process, how to apply it to, and how I applied it really to build my freelancing business up to 6 figures. At the end of that video, you can apply to have what we're calling breakthrough strategy sessions, basically a call to figure out if there's anything within the No Pants world we can offer to help you to build a business in which pricing isn't the main topic of conversation. Allow you to charge more and allow you to have less friction in what it is that you are selling. That's it for me, my friends. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I'll see you tomorrow.